Hello. Let's talk about flight attendant training. Let's talk about the truth about flight attendant training. So, a couple things that I want to make sure that you know at the beginning is what if you've been accepted or invited to attend an airline's training, congratulations. What an accomplishment. Being invited to attend training with an airline, getting that CJO, that conditional job offer, or that CTO, conditional training offer, is such an accomplishment. Sidebar, they are renovating the house behind me, and they're jackhammering today. And I don't know if it's going to stop. But hopefully my special mic will help drown some of that out. But back to training. So if you've received that invitation, that is so cool. That is such a accomplishment. It's something you should be proud of, and it's something you should be proud of forever. Now, yesterday we talked about confidence, and we talked about which was about interviewing, and we talked about the fact that, even if you're offered a job with an airline, that doesn't mean you have to work for that airline, because interviewing is a time for you to find out about the airline and them to find out about you. So once you get that job offer, that is always an accomplishment. Now, if you choose to go with that airline, that is really exciting. Or if you decide that it's not the right time or they're not the right fit, nothing can change the fact that you got that offer as far in your heart, right? So that's a really cool accomplishment no matter what. But let's talk about how to be successful in training. So once you have been accepted or invited to attend flight attendant training, and we're not talking about flight attendant schools, those are not a thing that we recommend. We're talking about you have interviewed and you have been almost hired by an airline, and they have invited you into their training program. Once they have made it to that decision in their process and they have decided to invite you, you are it for them. They have decided that you should be one of their flight attendants. You will hear in training that training is an extension of the interview process, and it is in a certain way of looking at it, meaning you're still under that conditional job offer. So if you're not successful, if you don't pass the drug test, if you don't pass the test, if you're late, if you are not in compliance with the dress code guidelines, if you have a bad attitude, there are things that could cause you to be released from training. So in that case, since you do need to make sure that you are still being your best flight attendant candidate self. But once they've invited you to training, in their mind and in their paperwork, you're no longer really a candidate. You are now a future flight attendant for that airline. And they have invested money in you by now. So they have run your background check. They have run your drug test. Those cost the airline money. They are bringing you to training. They are putting man hours and effort into teaching you and turning you into a flight attendant. That takes money and investment. And they're not going to invest that level in someone that they think is she might make it, she might not, I don't know. So once you get to training, it's not the kind of situation where they're looking for 50% attrition, or you can expect 50 people won't make it, 50% won't make it through our training. It's nothing like that. Once you get to training, the goal, this is from a former in-flight instructor, the goal is for everyone to be successful. The goal is for everyone to be successful. That is what the goal is. That is what your instructor's goal is. They're not trying to weed out the weakest links or cause super challenging situations to see if you have what it takes. They are wanting to get their investment back. And the way they get their investment back is by getting you out on the line working and serving their customers and doing all the things that you promised you would do in the interview. So it really is it is their goal for you to be successful during training. Another thing to note is that these training programs are FAA certified training programs. So when you graduate from a commercial airlines training program, you will be a FAA certified flight attendant. You will get a little card from the FAA and that you're required to carry, and it's like a little license looking thing. It's different from your badge. It's an FAA, it doesn't have your photo on it. It's an FAA certified flight attendant card. And because these are FAA certified programs, the FAA is keeping an eye on them, right? So the way that it works is when an airline is ready to create a training program, they build out all the materials, they build out all of the policies, they build out all of the training, all the training materials, the manuals, things like that, and then they submit it to the FAA for approval. And then the FAA approves it, and that is now what that airline is required to teach. And this is why we see some nuances between training programs. Even airlines that have the same type of aircraft, there may be a slight difference. We have different evacuation commands. Even for the same aircraft, some airlines will have you say, release seatbelts and get out. Some will say, unbuckle seatbelts and leave everything. Unbuckle seatbelts and stand up. So we have like these small differences even in like evacuation commands, and that's because the airline has created the training program that they would like to do and then give it to the FAA for approval, as opposed to the FAA saying, here's the evacuation commands, everybody teach these. So that's why they're a little bit different. So that FAA certified training program is monitored by the FAA too. And so if there is a high amount of attrition, or if there's a lot of people not being successful in training when this training program has already been approved by the company, approved by the FAA, then the airline is going to start looking as to where the problem is. So if a lot of people are being unsuccessful in training, then there's two reasons. One is the hiring team is falling short, or the training department is falling short, right? So it's no one's goal to fall short. So the hiring department is working really hard to make sure that they're hiring the right standard of people and the right fit for people. And then the training department, it really matters to them if their classes are successful, if their students are successful. Nobody has to be an in-flight instructor. No one is forced into it, and no one accidentally becomes one. In fact, usually they're not even external hires. Almost all the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, the instructors that you're going to encounter are actual flight attendants that either have decided to apply and move into the training department, or they're there just on special assignment and they're going to go back to their first love, flying, once their assignment is over. So that shows you that these are not people who just accidentally or couldn't, just wanted to do something. These are people who had a good thing going, but were passionate about teaching and about continuing to create flight attendants that make a difference in the company and make a difference in aviation and make a difference in the traveling. So if you're headed to training, I want you to keep that in mind, that it's in everybody's best interest, not just yours, and it's everybody's goal, not just yours, for you to be successful because you have already been chosen and picked and invested in. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of encouragement. Now, that being said, are people unsuccessful in training? Yes. Are there people who are unsuccessful in every training class? Probably. I haven't looked at all of them, but probably. Now, there's lots and lots of different reasons. I think last week I did a video, it might have been 2 weeks ago, about 10 reasons that people are unsuccessful in training, and it's a wide variety. It's everything from failing tests, so not being able to hit that academic marker, to deciding that you changed your mind. Somebody, you could get pregnant or be pregnant, find out you're pregnant. I had a classmate that happened to. She found out that she was expecting, and so she decided to go home. Now, you don't have to. The airline didn't make her go home, but that's what she decided to do. But she didn't make it through training on her own choice, right? So there's lots of different reasons why. Sometimes it is drug tests that I think now most drug tests are being done before training starts. But in the past, in different airlines, I'm not sure how every single airline is doing it today, but there could be a situation where the drug test hasn't come back until after training starts, and it could come back negative or positive, and it should be negative. And that could be a reason to leave training. Also, sometimes drinking, curfew, being late to class. Like I said, there's a video with 10 different things. I break them all down. I mean, it's not an exhaustive list. I'm sure that there are reasons outside of these that people get dismissed, but I was trying to just do kind of a wide variety, hopefully, again, to encourage you to say, okay, if I'm on time, I don't get plastered every night, and, you know, I do my best, there's a really good chance I'm going to be successful in training. So that, I would check that out if you're worried about it. You can check that video out. Now, let's talk about training. One thing that is really important once we get to training that's a little bit different than the interview is the way that you present yourself. So for an interview, we want to present ourselves in the best professional light, right? But there's a little bit of freedom as far as what you're wearing, the colors that you're wearing, even how you wear your hair, your nail length, your jewelry, things like this are not as, it's not like in an interview you're getting a dress code. Sometimes you get suggestions, sometimes you get guidelines, but you're not getting a really solid uniform dress code for your interview. The shoes are not, you know, you can wear whatever shoe, not whatever, you can wear your professional shoes that you have. Now, in training, that starts to get a lot stricter. They really start buckling down. So some airlines require you to wear certain color shirts. Some airlines require you to wear a certain suit. Some airlines will have some days casual, some days more professional, some days hair down, some days you have to have service hair, have your hair up. They're going to start cutting down on your jewelry, 1 ring per hand, earrings no larger than a quarter. They're going to start dialing down on your shoes, making sure that your shoes are within the uniform guidelines as well. So there's a lot more that goes into following the dress code, and that really is a trial run for them to see if you are going to be willing and able to follow the uniform guideline. And then at some point in training, more than likely, you'll get your uniform. And then when you're in uniform, you have to be fully in uniform. So, and this is forever. If you're you can't be partly in uniform. So if you haven't gotten your shoes yet, but you've got your full uniform, you can't wear your uniform if you don't have your uniform shoes yet. You have to be fully in uniform. So we start to see a little bit more guidelines, and it's stricter as far as your appearance goes, showing up ready for class, showing up ready to go. Those kinds of things, being prepared, having the things that they ask you to bring. They ask you to bring your passport tomorrow and your index cards. Make sure you bring your passport and your index cards, making sure that you're being prepared. So these are things that sometimes can cause people to struggle or cause people to trip up if they're not following directions and following the guidelines. Exactly. Okay. So that's something that I want to just kind of put in your mind. Another thing is about studying. So the biggest anxiety or nerves I feel like around training is going to be around the tests. Each airline has a little bit of a different testing policy, and they'll let you know what it is. But in general, it's you'll either have to make 80 or 90%. Those are the two numbers I've kind of seen. Usually you get a retake or two, kind of depending on the airline's training guidelines. But the testing is something that is probably the most nerve-wracking. So there's a couple things. If you're not a great test taker or not a great note taker, there's some really good free resources online that you can, like blogs that you can read or videos that you can watch, finding out what kind of learner you are. Are you an auditory learner? Are you a visual learner? Are you a tactile learner? Now, the training's not going to necessarily cater to your learning style, but knowing what your learning style is can really help with your studying. Have lots of study supplies, lots of index cards, notebooks, pens, different color pens, different color highlighters, things that just can help you make notes, take notes, and create diagrams and things like that that make it a little bit more, I want to use the word fun, and it's not necessarily fun, but a little bit more interactive. That's probably a better word. So that when you're studying, things are a little bit more interactive. Okay. Another thing that you can do before you go to training, there's not a lot that you can really study outside the training packet that they would send you, because they'll probably send you a training packet with information for you to become familiar with, but you can start to learn airport city codes. Every airport in the world has a 3-letter code, and once you find out what airline you're going to be flying for, you can go and look and start to become familiar with the airport city codes. Some airlines test on this. They'll let you know if they do, and tell you what to study, but not airlines test on this anymore. But it's just a way, if you feel like you would like to be prepared or you would like to learn something, you can start to learn that. You can start to learn those airport city codes. This, either way, whether you're tested or not, it's going to help you when you get out on the line, because those 3-letter codes are what's printed on your paperwork for connections. It's printed on the bag tags about where the luggage is going, things like that. So when you're working a flight and you have a customer asking you about a connection to West Palm and it just says PBI on your paperwork, you need to know that PBI is West Palm Beach, so that you can give them the information. So it can be helpful to know what the airport city codes are. Also, you're going to be using military time, or the 24-hour clock is what it's actually called, but the military uses it, so we kind of call it military time as well. So that's the 24-hour clock. That's when you hear like 1300 hours or 0930 or whatever, that kind of thing. So if you want to, you could switch your phone and maybe even your watch to the 24-hour clock. It takes a little bit of time for your brain to start calculating and converting the time. So don't do it and make yourself like late or like miss your current work or whatever. But it is something you can start learning. If you don't want to switch everything over, you could just kind of be familiar with it and kind of quiz yourself in it. Because when crew scheduling calls you and when they give you assignments and training as well, they'll use that 24-hour clock. So definitely understand what it is and how to add and subtract the 12 hours to get what you need. But also, if you start becoming more familiar with it, again, one less thing you have to kind of worry about working with when you're in training. Okay, so those are some of the things that you can learn. Another thing that you can look at is what kind of aircraft your airline has. So when you go to look at, for example, Delta or United or American, and you start to look at their aircraft, you may also find their regional carrier aircrafts on their website. So really finding out which airplanes your airline uses is just sort of something that is interesting to know. Not interesting, it could be helpful to know. So if your airline flies CRJ 200s and 900s, just knowing that. You can also try to find out how many seats are on each type of aircraft that your airline operates, and how many lavatories are on the airplane that your airline operates as well. And these are things that you'll learn in training, and they're not things that you necessarily have to know before you go into training. But these are some kind of basic things that if you are one of those people who has to be learning something, got to be as prepared as possible, want to do your research, these are things you can learn that can be helpful and will not be a hindrance. So my biggest thing about preparing for training and about waiting until you get your information is I don't want you to learn the wrong thing. If you go Googling around on the internet, you'll find Quizlet, you'll find like other things, you'll find like old notes, you'll find you'll find stuff, right? But it could be old, it could be outdated, it could be the old announcements, it could be the old configuration. And if you learn that, then it's going to be very hard for you to unlearn it so you can relearn what you have to learn. So that's why I'm really leery about encouraging you to really try to find out some information about training. Because if it's not current and correct, then once it's in your brain, it's so much harder to take it out and replace it with the new thing than it is to just put the new thing in. Okay? But airport city codes, 24-hour clock, type of aircraft operated, those are all things that you can kind of start to become familiar with so that you do have a little bit of a foundation when they start teaching you and talking to you about the configuration and the number of lavatories on board and the number of seats on board. And for every 50 seats you have to have a flight attendant. So once you know how many seats each aircraft has, you can also do the math and find out what is the minimum crew required for this flight. So if I have 112, I need 3 flight attendants on board. If I have a 50-seater, I need 1 flight attendant. A 90-seater, I need 2 flight attendants. If I have a 203-seater, I need what? 5 flight attendants? 50, 100, 150, 200. Yeah, so that would be 5, I think. Wow. See, you could do the math yourself and then you would know. But these are the kinds of things that you can start to think about and know about minimum crew and stuff like that. And those are things that don't really change from carrier to carrier. So you wouldn't necessarily need to unlearn that kind of stuff and replace it. So I hope that this was encouraging. I hope this was helpful. Tomorrow, if you're watching this on Friday, tomorrow on the 15th, we're having a free study hall, which is a amazing group coaching seminar type opportunity for us to connect. You'll get to practice your interview skills. You'll get to hear about other people's experiences, and there'll just be a lot of really good information. But if you're watching after, then check the description. I might have the replay up by then, and you can watch the replay. But if not, if you're watching it now, go ahead and sign up so you can join us live. I would love that. I've really enjoyed this little 5-part mini series, and I hope that you found it helpful too. Please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to the email list, join the Facebook group, do all the things if you haven't done them, so that you can get the best, most up-to-date information about who is hiring, as well as what the interview process is like currently, and so that you can just get all the information that you need to help you reach your goals. Thank you for your time. Good luck in training. I'm excited for you.